Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the CPI Training Showcase. Thank you for giving me your time on this Thursday afternoon. I'm sure you've had some busy days, and so really appreciate you spending the time to spend with me for the next 45 minutes or so to hear about the training programs that we offer. My name's Ollie Frith. I have worked in education for a number of years now. I'm trying to think back, maybe 20 plus years, and I started off as a drama teacher. I found that I was interested with the challenging young people and behaviour, and so sort of my career was carved out in that respect. I've gone on to deliver behaviour training all over the world, as very fortunately and very privileged to have the experience of lots of different types of schools and different types of settings. But ultimately, people are people. And at CPI and in my career here now, we really started to think about the program suite that we want to offer schools and education establishments to really be able to provide safe environments for young people to be able to flourish. So today's objectives very much are around giving you an insight in terms of the full 360-degree product suite that we offer at CPI. We've done a number of webinars over the recent years, and we put out all sorts of resources and free behaviour tips, and we just realised we hadn't actually done a specific webinar promoting the training programs, the options that schools have in terms of the support that's available from us. And so very much, as you can see on the title of the slide, Safer School, Better Behaviour, the belief at CPI very much is around if we can really create safe environments, and I'm not just talking about physical safety, I'm talking about all sorts of different types of safety, and I'll come on to those in a little while, then that feeling of safety really contributes to the ability to be able to manage better behaviour environments. You know, I can't learn from you unless I feel safe, but equally as a teacher, I can't teach unless I feel safe. And so this isn't just about young people, this is about all stakeholders in a school environment, really thinking about how can we create a culture that is suitable and encouraging safe and improved behaviour environments. So without further ado, I just want to introduce then this idea of a 360-degree solution that CPI now offers, that's very much around this rounded approach to school culture change. And our program suite is built around this notion, like I said, of safer school, better behaviour. And I'm just going to sort of flash up the different programs that are available within this suite. And it seems like, yeah, there's a fair amount. We've got things around changing the culture of the classroom. We've got specific skill training around verbal interventions, breaking up fights, for example. We've got a full program around safety interventions. We also offer coaching, consultancy. We do audits, behaviour health checks to really start a project to understand where we can benchmark what's the current culture and climate like. And then we also do sort of a hearts and minds inset. But I'll go into those each one by one throughout this webinar as I explain how they fit to the narrative around a behaviour change project, if you like. Safer Schools, Better Behaviour programme very much is around the organisation culture change. Now, different programmes might be suited to different people. Some might be suited for leadership. Some might be suitable for all staff. Some might be relevant to the pastoral team or the behaviour team. And so it's very much around working with us to identify the best programmes to suit your needs. We have a discovery process. We call it a training needs analysis, and we invite every single one of you to come and take part in a free consultation where effectively we'll have a conversation around the current situation, behaviour incidents that you encounter, the types of behaviour, and then we'll very much sort of recommend different programs that will be most suitable to your situation. Because let's face it, challenging behaviour means something very different to each of us. You know, I've been into schools where challenging behaviour was described when young people wouldn't do their top buttons up and wear their ties properly. And that was a challenge to staff. And I've been in other school settings where challenging behaviour is very much around that physical safety. And we're talking about chairs and things flying around and everything in between. So our training programs essentially have been designed very much to be tailored to suit specific school needs. You know, we don't profess to know and understand your students, your population, your family situations. And so it's very much around how can we create bespoke packages that suits the needs and the requirements of each and every school. I just want to start really and look at this. I mean, I mentioned safety and I mentioned the idea of safer schools, better behaviour. This isn't a new idea, right? A safe environment is a prerequisite for productive learning. This is stuff that Maslow's talked about. This is stuff that Piaget has talked about. So we're not creating a new radical idea or a radical approach to behaviour. But what we're doing is learning from all of the different researches that have been out there that talks about the idea that if young people feel unsafe at school, there are significant barriers to their learning and behaviour. They're less able to focus on the task at hand. Over time, that feeling of the lack of safety contributes to chronic stress, and we are more and more, and certainly in the last 5-6 years, learning more and understanding more and more around the way in which the brain works and the impact of toxic stress. And so, although this webinar doesn't go into details around understanding the whys and the wherefores, I think it's fair to say that we have a really robust understanding that this is a problem. Young people feeling stressed, professionals feeling stressed, and therefore unsafe, causes a challenge that perhaps if we build foundational approaches to an improved school culture, then we reduce that feeling of insecurity and we improve the feelings of security and therefore producing a conducive learning environment. So for a safer school, let's define that. An environment where young people, staff, visitors alike feel secure, supported and respected. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that ambition. Can we create that environment where everyone feels secure, supported and respected? And then, like I said before, beyond physical security, we also have to consider the idea of emotional and psychological and relational and social well-being, because safety isn't just about not being hurt or not being dangerous. We have to really think about how do we create secure learning environments so young people are willing to take risks, they're willing to get it wrong, they're willing to learn experientially without that barrier that may well get in their way. And so the aim very much is around a holistic approach that ensures all aspects of safety are addressed. And that's what CPI's training programme really does. Of course, we want to lead to better outcomes. Of course, we want a positive culture and climate. And so CPI programme suite very much looks at how can we work with your school? How can we train your staff? How can we provide your staff with the skills and the knowledge to really build that culture for yourselves? Because as a provider of training, we don't really want to encourage people to do it our way. What we want to be able to do is support every single professional and every single school organisation to create the culture of your way. This is how we do things. That's the statement that we want your staff to be saying. And so the support in place isn't about this is how they do things, but it's about how we, that collective we, can move on and improve the behaviour culture of your setting. So I think this slide's important for me, and we started off talking about safer school, better behaviour, but actually at the heart of that is the child, is the young person. So I think it would be reasonable to go safer child, better behaviour, and there's 3 different distinct types of safety that I think are really relevant to this conversation. And all of our programmes are directly linked to addressing and supporting and improving these elements of safety. So, of course, we've got physical safety. Of course, we need to feel physically safe in our environments, both professionals and young people. And we need to look at how do we achieve that and work towards that. And then when we go around, then there is an emotional and psychological safety that every young person and every professional needs to experience and feel. And then, of course, we've got relational safety or social safety, and maybe there's 2 slightly variations there, but ultimately that sense of being part of something and that sense of togetherness. And all these 3 types of safety have a very distinct part to play in the environments of our classrooms, in the environments in our year phases, in our department groups, in our whole school culture. And when we understand that we can build towards how intrinsically linked these different types of safety are, of course they overlap. And then essentially we can really start to put the building blocks in place. The ambition for CPI is that we don't want to just be a training provider. I remember sitting through insets, both experiencing them and delivering them, and feeling quite frustrated that training didn't seem to go far enough. Training was this idea that an expert, an external provider would come in, would deliver a session, whether it was a twilight or an inset during the school year, and then go. And it always felt like there was this idea of you've kind of left us with something, and however good that day was, ultimately tomorrow comes and business as usual happens, and all the other competing priorities kick in. And I think for me, that one and done in and out training that doesn't have that longevity that I believe culture change really requires. And so we've built our training programs to be very much around being seen as a support partner. So we offer that support, we offer that training, and yes, we can come and deliver it, but ultimately we don't want to walk away. Right, you've had the training, you're on your own now. We very much want to be felt and experienced as that support partner over the next year, 2, 3 years, as part of your school improvement plan of how can we help you embed and entrench that culture so it becomes part of the fabric of the school building. You know, we all know that initiatives come and go, and any experienced professional will sit in a training room, and the first question you'll be asking yourself will be, will we be doing this in 6 months' time? Because if the answer is no, well, why am I going to do it tomorrow? If it's just going to be a fad and a new initiative is going to come and go, why would I invest my time and energy? Because it's a huge investment to support a culture change. And so what CPI wants to do is very much support each school, each multi-academy trust, each local authority, of any organisation that we work with, of how to really embed that change. So like I said, it's part of the building and the culture of the organisation, rather than sitting on the shoulders of a handful of superheroes running around reminding everyone what we agreed to do on the September inset. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with CPI or unaware of us, so thank you for giving us your time to learn about us. Our guiding philosophy is built on these 4 values. And every single training program that we deliver and support, these 4 values are ripple through them. And I would like to say that even every interaction that people have with us, whether it's our customer care team, our sales team, even the marketing team, all of the teams, our training team particularly, ripple with these four values. You know, the care, the respect, dignity, and empathy towards a very person-centered approach. You know, it's integral to our ambition and our outlook. You know, the welfare of everyone involved, young people, professionals, colleagues, so we can maintain that independence, choice, and well-being. But of course, safety has to be at the forefront in there. That's a really key part. But that includes protecting the rights and agreeing and committing to minimising harm. So, you know, it's all very well in terms of justifying an action because I had no other choice, but are we truly making sure that we're doing everything we can to minimize harm? And then, of course, the security, and feeling secure, safe, effective, harmonious, and collaborative relationships, because we know at CPI that to create the most effective and the most powerful learning environments, that behavior is supported in the most considered way. We have to really consider not just building incredible relationships with young people, but we have to protect those relationships. I think too often we, as professionals, we understand the value of building relationships. Of course, very few people have I seen not understand that. But then we have a school policy that says in this incident or this behavior equals this response. And then we're also almost forced to sabotage the relationships that we've just been building. And so what I would like to see is supporting schools with a culture that not only effectively builds beautiful relationships with young people, but also commits to upholding those, maintaining those, and when there is damage, to repairing those relationships as well. So the training that CPI delivers effectively is you get 2 options. And you can cherry pick them. We have the direct delivery, which is your traditional inset. A CPI trainer can come to your school and deliver a full day inset, a twilight, whatever, depending on the program, to your staff. And we can do that. But over the years, one of our frustrations was that we would go into a school, deliver training, and people would say, in my 20 years of teaching, that's the best training I've ever experienced. Can you come back next year and do it again? And in my mind, it can't have been the best training, because if we've got to come back and do it again, well, then how effective was it really? And so we built and designed a trainer-trainer model around many of our training programs that effectively will allow us to train members of your staff colleagues of yours to come and license in the programs that they deliver, they train in, and then you've got an in-house expert or a number of in-house certified instructors, we call them, that could onward deliver the training as and when. So what a lot of our customers do is build that into an induction plan. So every time a new member of staff joins, then they go through this program. And the flexibility that schools have when they have that in-house training capacity means that you can do drop-in sessions. You can rearrange training events depending on what your needs are. You can have twilights, you can have full insets, and it gives you much more flexibility. So of course you can have the balance, and some of our programs are just direct delivery when we support a launch of a project, for example, but you can also have the trainer approach. And so what I'd like to do in this time is go through the different programs that we've got to really try to give you an insight of the different programs and how they sit in that 360-degree wheel. But before I do, I just want to draw attention to the free resources that we have available on the website. There's some examples here, and I've filtered them by the education ones. All of these resources are for you to just go in and download and access. And I think my colleague's going to put the link, so if anyone is on the webinar live rather than watching the recording, then you should be able to click that link in the chat. And so the resources, for me, it's really important that we don't just say you can only access our content if you become a customer. I think it's really important that I know on this webinar, for example, we've got senior leaders, we've got behaviour specialists, but we've also got people who work in support or people who are, a classroom teacher who may not have the decision-making abilities to bring in training like this. But you want support as well, and so there is a wealth of resources, and you can see there it's the classroom behaviour tips. Any one of you can sign up for free behaviour tips to just be emailed to you on a weekly basis. So there are lots of options for individuals, professionals, just as much as the training that we offer to organisations. So here's the 360-degree Safer School, Better Behaviour product suite. And I'm just going to take some time to go through and explain each one of them and how they fit together. So there's two on this slide, I appreciate that, but effectively we do a behaviour and culture health check. Now, one of our trainers would come to your school and spend half day, full day, depending on what was required, the size of the school, and essentially do some research around behaviour and culture. And then they would come away and write a report and give you some guidance about things that we feel you're doing very well and things that we would recommend that you would want to improve upon and further develop as part of that school improvement plan. That audit is built around our 5 core principles of classroom culture, and I'll come on to those later on. But schools find this a really effective way to start the project. And some schools say, can we have that first? And then from that, we'll decide on what programs we want to then commit to training our staff in afterwards. And so that can be a really nice way of easing in, if you like. The stats on the slide there are just kind of an example of the sort of feedback that we get. 96% of organisations that we work with in the education space agree that CPI training is critical for schools and classrooms. 89% feel their skills and confidence has improved since undertaking the CPI training. And then the 61%, which is for me a really important one, have reduced challenging behaviours, by a significant amount. And so the fact is it works and we can demonstrate it. And I'll go on to some case studies towards the end of this webinar. You'll see on the slide there's a QR code. Obviously, we're going to send this recording out to everyone, so don't feel you've got to sort of panic, take a photo of that now. But each of these program slides will have a QR code on that you can scan and go and get further information that's on our website around this specific program. And then we have Hearts and Minds Inset. And the reason why we wrote this program was very much around the idea that we can't just train people in skills. We can't just train people in knowledge and understanding. We've got to support professionals to commit and want to embrace that change. And so I would say behaviour is about hearts and minds. We get that right, and then the strategies become far more valuable, far more impactful. And so the Hearts and Minds Inset is very much often used as a project launch. the big behaviour projects, some schools are starting to call them, that start off with this hearts and minds on an inset, and every member of staff, and we can deliver that to all of your staff in one go if you've got the space that will allow that, of course. And that just really sets the tone for how valuable, how crucial it is to get behaviour change right and culture change right. Then we have, like I mentioned, the Classroom Culture Programme, and this very much is built around 5 core principles of behaviour management. We need to start off with the consistent, calm behaviour. If we don't get that right, if we don't get the commitment from professionals to be consistent and calm around the way they approach managing behaviour with young people, then forget the strategies, forget the commitments, forget the flow chart that we want everyone to follow. We have to commit to getting that right, because it is entirely unreasonable for me as a professional to pull up a young person for behaving in a disrespectful way and then be inconsistent and the opposite of calm when I'm doing it. If I raise my voice, if I aggress, if I point my finger because they're behaving badly, then effectively I'm saying do as I say, not as I do. We need to model the expectations, and we have to start there. So I'm not saying it's teachers' fault at all. And when I say teachers, I mean educators, that they have challenging behaviour or distressed behaviour, as I like to call it. But I am saying it's our responsibility. As professionals, it is absolutely our responsibility to influence and improve behaviour in our classrooms. Then we've got sustainable routines, we've got first attention to best conduct, we've got this idea of proactive, preventative measures. Get the routines right, and I think that's something that COVID, certainly, if you didn't know it already, COVID and the experience of teaching through COVID absolutely taught that the essential nature of routines and real solid keystone moments to bring everyone together. This is how we do things here. The idea of first attention to best conduct has to be about you get more of the behaviour that you notice the most. And often I go into schools and say to young people, what's the easiest way to get noticed in your school? And if your students say to do the wrong thing, I get noticed straight away, then I think we have to ask ourselves some questions about, is our focus in the right area? What I want students to say, the easiest way, the best way for me to get noticed is by doing the best conduct. Staff are all over that. And I think, we can demonstrate how to achieve those things. Then with the 4th principle, we talk about scripted intervention and really giving a firm level of certainty when we do have to intervene with unwarranted or unwanted behaviours. And then finally, for me, the 5th principle is all around restorative approaches. How do we tie it together? Like I said earlier, we build relationships, but how do we maintain them? And then how do we repair them? And so that, in a nutshell, is classroom culture. We can come and deliver it live. We have an online piece that schools can choose to have all staff attend, which is great because you can access it and you can review each of the 5 principles rather than trying to remember a single training day. And then we do have an instructor program of this where members of your staff can come and train as a certified instructor and then onward deliver that program throughout the year in bite-sized chunks. Then as behaviour escalates and distressed behaviour becomes more problematic, we start to have different levels of training that is suitable for the different types of challenge that we're presented with. So we have verbal intervention, and this is very much around giving staff the skills to identify, respond to and verbally de-escalate challenging behaviour. And that de-escalation is key. The verbal intervention is very much aimed at that point at which behaviour does start to become challenged, and that distressed moment where young people are starting to lose control of their effective decision making. We understand the neuroscience of the brain. We know that people aren't fully the prefrontal cortex, the emotional sense of the brain aren't fully developed until you're in your mid-20s. And so young people are developing and they don't have that ability to regulate in the way in which we would sometimes ideally appreciate. And so verbal intervention very much gives staff the skills to intervene and de-escalate that situation so we can work towards effective outcomes. Then we have safety intervention, foundation training. Now, I would say that for a mainstream school, then you may well feel that this is entirely unnecessary, and I would support that. As part of the safety intervention programme, we do have physical interventions. And the reason why I've got this here as part of a school product suite is that we work with all sorts of different types of schools. And some schools, sadly, there is an immediate need for staff to be trained in physical intervention. But the essence of CPI's vision and also this program is very much around let's do everything we can to prevent it from happening, to reduce the chance of it happening. There's a conversation, let's call it, in schools around physical intervention currently that some schools like to call it positive handling. And it makes me quite uncomfortable that we would encourage that term, and CPI certainly wouldn't, because anyone that has been involved in a physical intervention will know there's nothing positive about doing it, but certainly not receiving it as the young person. And so I fear that if we encourage professionals to call it positive handling, then we're almost wallpapering over a very uncomfortable reality. I would, as a parent myself, if my child behaved in such an unsafe way, either to themselves or someone else, and the school had to physically intervene, I want to know about it. I don't want to be told that my child was positively handled. I want to be told that my child was restrained. And I want to understand why. I want to understand what could have been done to avoid it. I want to be involved in that. And I think the more upfront and open and transparent we are about these sorts of conversations, I think it creates a much healthier narrative for schools to say, do we need to train staff in this core skill? If we do, then is it finite? Can we work towards not having to anymore? And so the safety intervention program very much is around, if you're going to do it, if you have to do it, no one wants to encourage it, but let's do it in the safest, most reasonable and proportionate way. And on top of that, let's understand, let's debrief, let's understand what we could do better, differently, more effectively next time. So a lot of the program, this isn't just a physical intervention program. The safety intervention program very much is around understanding behavior, decision making, and really giving staff core skills to do everything they can to make sure that the physical intervention is only ever seen as last resort. Never a punishment, never the first response, but very much around the best interests of the child and the community. Now, like I said, lots of mainstream schools, I would encourage them to question whether or not you do need to train staff in physical intervention. But what we found, and we've done some research earlier this year or maybe last year, around the fact that schools staff have there's a lack of skill or lack of confidence in responding to fights. And so we've written a program about it. We've created a program specifically to train staff in the intervention skills required to break up fights in the most safest way. But of course, like I talked about, we can't just train people to respond. We have to be able to look at how do we prevent fights. Now, of course, there's going to be some fights that are unpreventable, but let's really look at the holistic culture of the school setting to think about what can be done to prevent fights from happening. Can we assess the risk? And then can we train staff to respond with the most appropriate intervention possible? And so this, just for example, this is a 3-hour program that sometimes we limit the number of participants, unlike our earlier programs that can be delivered to all staff at the same time. Safety intervention and breaking up fights are very limited because there are physical skills that are involved. And we want to make sure that when we train staff in physical skills, there is a real due diligence to making sure that everyone that we pass the course and sign off, that we have a confidence that they are going to take those skills and use them in the most reasonable and proportionate way. So that in a nutshell is an overview of all of our different current programs. And at CPI, we believe very much in research. We believe very much in evidence-based practices. And so all the time we are considering how do we develop, how do we evolve, how do we make sure that our programs that we deliver and the training that we deliver and the support that we give to schools is the most up-to-date, the most current and the most impactful support that we can offer. And I just wanted to share this with you. It's a customer story. Now, I can't give you the school's name because it's been created, it's been written, so it's a very recent one, but the school haven't signed off on it yet. I don't expect them to not. But it's just interesting to me as an example of the impact of CPI training. You know, this school felt that the training we've offered did give them, and I know that Ofsted classification has now changed and is changing continually, but I do think that there's always going to be a category for behaviour and attitudes. or whatever it gets called in next year's release. But ultimately, this school at the time felt that the training that we've given them allowed them to shift from RI to outstanding for behaviours and attitudes, which is quite significant. I'm sure you'll agree. The SLT time had been significantly reduced. They've told us that 6 hours a day, collective combined SLT time, has been saved now in not having to attend behaviour incidents. They've trained 100% of their staff in our programs, and like I said, they did achieve outstanding in category when it was assessed. So the school's reputation now locally has dramatically improved with parents. The unified approach means that staff now feel safe and secure in the setting, and the training has given that targeted support to allow specific students to be identified with response, with plans that can be used not just to respond or react, but to actually improve things and to empower young people to become more regulated and more accountable for their own behaviour choices. And then here, and I'm not going to read these out to you because I think it's dreadful, isn't it, when someone shows you a slide and literally reads them word for word. But I just wanted to get a snapshot, some testimonials about our programmes to really give you an idea. So the Hearts and Mind programme, in my 20 years, without a doubt, the most fun, enjoyable, thought-provoking session we've ever had. For the classroom culture, exactly what we'd hoped for. Hints, tips, strategies at the forefront of our practice, to reevaluate our school vision, values and aims. And so you can really understand through these testimonials what I've talked about earlier around how CPI wants and is available to work with your school and your staff to really help improve the overall culture change that can embed it for years to come. The Breaking Up Fights programme, which we only released earlier this year, the training was invaluable. The professional, knowledgeable and helpful trainers, just pulling out some things here, the theory and practical application. So again, like I said, it's not just about the physical skills, it's also around the theory and understanding about how do we make the right and appropriate decisions in the moment. And then the safety intervention programme, for me, this is a really important one. Like I said, it's not about restrictive practices, it's about how to avoid them. And this particular testimonial said, after using these skills, I've been able to avoid restraint, which again, for me, really is about the whole ambition of CPI, of what we're aiming for, which is towards a restraint-free world, to work towards a relational approach that supports young people, that supports professionals, to really understand the meaning of behaviour change, to really buy into and subscribe to the notion of the accountability that I need to maintain as a professional. Because I've been in schools for many years, and I've said it myself, and I've heard many colleagues say it, to young people in primary schools, in secondary schools, I've worked in pupil referral units, and I've heard professionals say to young people, you need to be more responsible for your actions. Now, don't get me wrong, they do, that's true. But I've never seen a 6-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 16-year-old hear that comment and say, you're absolutely right, I will fix the error of my ways. I've just seen eye rolling, I've seen tuts, I've seen huffs. And it's just made me really think about, how can I say to a young person, you need to be responsible for your actions, if I am not absolutely confident that I am modelling it? So regardless of the behaviour programmes that CPI offers support in and training in, all of them are peppered with the idea that I am responsible for my behaviour. It's the one and only thing that I can confidently try and control. I can't control your behaviour, but I can control mine. And so the more that we can prepare professionals to feel confident and capable to regulate and to manage their own behaviour, we can in turn influence young people to learn to do it themselves. They can learn to regulate and manage their own behaviour, but they can also learn to repair damage when it's done. So I think the next slide is making it available. It did say questions on my slide, but I've obviously forgotten to write that this time. But I'm going to go to the Q&A, and I'm just looking through to see if there's anything there that I see my colleague has answered pretty much everything that is there. So I don't think I have got any questions that I need to answer. So we will be sending this recording out to all of you. Thank you so much on Thursday afternoon. I'm sure you're absolutely exhausted. I really appreciate your time in in coming over to our webinar. And let me go to the last slide. We've got our website there. We've got our phone number there. You can get in touch. Like I said, we will be emailing you in the next 24 hours, 48 hours or so. And then you can, of course, if you're interested in more information, you can reply to that, or you can go to the website. There'll be some links and things that you can click. So just for me left to say, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to hearing from you soon. And the team will be ready to assist with the consultations that you might be needing. Many thanks.